I call this meeting to order. Please stand for a flag salute and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Roll call.
Commissioner Moroz?
Present.
Commissioner Palagrud? Present. Commissioner Circo?
Present.
Commissioner Sotile? And Commissioner Edison?
Present.
Thank you. Welcome to the El Cajon Planning Commission meeting. Before I would like to begin, I'd like to welcome Shannon Edison to the Planning Commission. Mr. Edison was appointed by the City Council on January 24th. And welcome aboard. Would you like to say a few words?
God, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the El Cajon City Council for voting me in. Thank you to Mayor Wells. I look forward to being part of the process for our city. This is the city I grew up in, and I'm glad to be part of the process.
Great, thank you. I'd also like to congratulate Commissioner Circo on his reappointment. It'll be great to have you on the commission for 4 more years. Great. Welcome to the El Cajon Planning Commission meeting. This meeting is being live streamed on the City of El Cajon website. Appeals of final decisions of the Planning Commission made this evening must be filed in writing with the City Clerk before 5 p.m. Tuesday, February 21st, 2023, and must include the payment of a filing fee. If you wish to speak on a non-agenda or agenda item tonight, please fill out a request to speak card located by the agenda and turn it into the secretary, who will call you up to speak when the agenda item comes up for public comment. We ask that you give us your name, spelling your last name. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. The display on the podium, as well as other monitors in the chamber, will show time counting down. At 30 seconds, the podium clock readout will turn red, signifying you have 30 seconds until the end of your time. Applicants and individuals representing groups of people may be allowed more time if appropriate. All public hearing comments should be addressed to me as the chair of the commission and not to individual commissioners or staff members. Please turn off all electronic devices if you had not already done so. Pursuant to City Council Resolution 114-79, a commissioner who has received evidence related to a matter before the Planning Commission other than an unescorted view of the subject property is required to disclose such information at the hearing. At this time, we will take comments from any member of the public on any item of business within the jurisdiction of the Commission that is not on the agenda. Under state law, no action can be taken on items brought forth under public comment, except to refer it to staff for administration or place it on a future agenda. Is there anyone that wishes to address the Commission under public comment? Please come forward now. All right, seeing that there's none, we will go to the consent calendar. A single motion will cover all items on the consent calendar. Do you have any items to pull?
No, thank you.
Okay. Staff, do you have any items?
No changes from staff.
Okay, great. If there's changes, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar. I'll second it. All right, motion made by Commissioner Moreau, second by Commissioner Sotile. Please vote.
Motion carries by a 4-0 vote. Commissioner Edison is abstaining from vote.
Great, thank you. All right, so the next public hearing is agenda
Mr. Chairman,
item.
if I may, just to confirm, could you ask Commissioner Edison just to confirm his abstention?
Yeah, were you being
I would like
abstain?
to, yes, that was blunder. I'm abstaining from the last motion because I was not here. I was not present.
Great, okay, great. And before we move on to agenda item number 2, Commissioner Edison, you have watched the video and read the transcripts?
That is correct. I've watched the video twice. I've read the transcripts, and I am prepared to participate.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. All right, agenda item number 2 is the East County Crematorium. It is CEQA exempt. Staff recommendation is deny, and we're ready to talk. Staff? This is and this is continued, so there's no need to open public hearing, correct?
We will need to open the public hearing.
Okay.
So we would open the continued public hearing.
Okay.
So again, this item was continued from January 17th. At that meeting, the Planning Commission did receive public testimony and then directed staff to prepare a draft resolution of approval for your consideration. So just as a reminder and a quick overview, the project proposes to expand an existing building at 1034 North Magnolia Avenue and to perform cremation services and funerals within the expanded building. The expanded building will include areas for on-site cremation, funerals, and viewings, in addition to a lobby, meeting room, and then a caretaker's unit on the second floor. For the surrounding properties and uses, we have Home Depot located to the west, and then Hampton Inn and Suites and other commercial uses to the south. To the east is State Route 67, and then to the north are industrial properties. So the proposed elevations are shown here. The north elevation at the top of the slide shows the entrance, and then the east elevation, which would be visible from North Magnolia Avenue and State Route 67, is the lower elevation. The south elevation is shown here at the top, and that's the building facade that would face Hampton Inn and Suites. And then the west elevation below that, that was the facade oriented towards Home Depot. Staff wanted to clarify that even though there's no signs that are shown on the south, east, and west elevations, the Planning Commission isn't able to restrict signage in conjunction with a conditional use permit. So even though the applicant isn't proposing any signs on those facades, if this project were to be approved, staff would not have the authority to tell them no to any signs on those building facades. They would just be allowed to put up signs in accordance with the regional commercial zone regulations. So that means that they would be eligible to have a pole sign or monument sign, so they can have a freestanding sign as well. So the only method by which the Planning Commission can restrict signage is through a separate ordinance or a specific plan. So like as an example, within the downtown specific plan 182, we restrict signage to 2 square feet per lineal foot of building facade, as opposed to standard commercial zone properties where it's allowed at 4 square feet per lineal foot of building facade. So I just wanted to be clear because that was part of the discussion at the previous hearing about signage and how the building facades related to surrounding properties and uses.
Great.
The other item that I just wanted to circle back on is at this January 17th hearing, the applicant's team provided some aerial imagery and analysis regarding 6 existing crematoriums within San Diego County. So I've listed those here. For reference, I just wanted to provide some street views of these facilities just to provide some additional context as part of your deliberations. So here at 100 West 35th Street in National City, you can see that this site is signed as the the Regency Industrial Park, and the adjacent surrounding uses are industrial as well. And then similarly, in Vista, again, the location is within an industrial park, and it has other industrial uses that are surrounding it. The 4 remaining sites that were discussed at the last hearing are associated with cemeteries. The first here is in San Diego with the Greenwood Cemetery on the right side of the screen, and then the crematorium facility, I believe, on the left. And then again, the other location, again, at the Greenwood Cemetery. This location is the Eternal Hills Cemetery in Oceanside. And then the last location that was discussed was the La Vista Memorial Park in National City. So I just want to provide the context of the street views. I think generally when you look at cemetery sites, they're larger in square footage and area. And it's really when you look at the use of a crematorium in conjunction with a cemetery, it's kind of almost an accessory use to the primary use of the cemetery, and it's something more of an expectation of that use being in that location. So there was a lot of testimony about proximity to other commercial uses and surrounding uses on these sites. So I just want to provide the additional context of those street views and kind of the industrial setting where the 2 industrial crematoriums are, and then providing the additional context of the 4 that are at the cemeteries. So in regards to public comments, since the public hearing, staff did receive a new comment letter, which was attached to the staff report, and it does recommend that the Planning Commission deny the conditional use permit. In accordance with the Planning Commission's previous direction, staff did prepare draft resolutions for the Planning Commission's consideration for a CEQA exemption, as well as approval of the conditional use permit. Staff did want to just note one final time that the staff recommendation is for the Planning Commission to deny the conditional use permit. And that's, again, based on those general plan-related goals, attracting and retaining a strong competitive regional commercial base, and really focusing on Parkway Plaza and its immediate vicinity in attracting uses. So that concludes staff's summary. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Great. Are you able, would you mind doing me a favor? Can you go on to Google Maps by chance for me? Is it possible to put that up on the screen? If I give you an address?
I don't think I have the PowerPoint presentation is just saved to my laptop, and I
Okay.
don't believe I have the ability to go directly to Google Maps, but I can see what I can do.
Okay. I just wanted to take a look at 374 Magnolia, and maybe I can just pass this around to the commissioners as well. If there's a way to get a laptop plugged in there and oh, that'd be great. Thank you. Thanks for doing that. Appreciate it. Uh, 374 Magnolia.
North Magnolia or just
Yeah, I think it would be. Is that North Magnolia? Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. There you go.
is that North Magnolia?
Yeah, it should come up under. Yeah, there you go. And then just go to the.
Street view?
Just go to the layer. There it is. Okay. So if you take a look there, and you can kind of scroll around. Yeah, if you could go the other way. Okay, so there we are on Magnolia Street, and we've got that signage right out front, and it says East County Mortuary and Cremation Services. And if you scroll the other way, and you go up towards, you're going to have a barber shop. So So my question is, so that's sitting right there on Magnolia, kind of staring at the whole world, and I think most people would think that that is cremation services. You know, no different than any other building. The only difference is with the other building, I feel, is it's just a little bit more set back. It's not on the Magnolia on the main drag. So, have we ever had any complaints about that business located there, or people saying it was a detriment to any other businesses or anything?
I'm not aware of any recent complaints.
Okay.
I would just remind the Planning Commission that there was a conditional use permit request to add the crematorium at this location a few years ago. That request was ultimately denied by the City Council. And then the only thing that I would add regarding signage is that the city only has the authority to regulate the location and size of signage. And from a free speech perspective, we don't regulate the speech on signage. So they would be able to indicate anything that they wanted on their signs, essentially. But the direct answer to your question is essentially no, there's not a history of complaints related to that use at that location.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Yes. Isn't there a crematorium in Chula Vista? And I don't think I saw that on the slide that you presented.
Right. So the staff report includes, from the previous public hearing, includes the list of all the crematoriums that are in San Diego County. The applicant, as part of their presentation at the last public hearing, outlined the 6 that I just went through as being those sites that are open and available to the public. So that's the reason that I just went over those 6, because those are the ones that they talked about the proximity to residential uses and other commercial uses.
The reason why I bring it up is that I heard, now I don't know if that's true or not because I didn't research it, that about a year ago there was a problem in the crematorium in Chula Vista where there was a malfunction and the smoke was billowing out into the community, and there was a complaint made to the city council at that point in time. But I don't know what resolutions they came up with. So I was wondering if you know anything about that situation that happened about a year ago.
So I'm not familiar with that specific case, but what I can say is that the exhaust from the crematorium is regulated by the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District. And so the applicant, in this case, if the request were to be approved, would need to go to the APCD and get the appropriate reviews and approvals in order to operate. And then with any type of use with exhaust similar to this, if there's an issue where it begins operating out of compliance with city standards, we would utilize code compliance staff through, a warning and citation process to bring the operation back into compliance.
Great.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff before we open up public hearing? Okay, well, this time let's go ahead and open up public hearing. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes. Can I have Heather Butterfield come up and speak, please?
Hi, my name is Heather Butterfield, Butterfield. I'm an attorney at Gershman Properties. We're an adjacent landowner, and we are in opposition to the conditional use permit. There's a letter that Ken Schellberg, who's general counsel for Gershman Properties, wrote. I just want to restate all of our objections for the record in there. But tonight, I just want to keep it a little bit more simple. This is a patently industrial use. I don't understand why they've sought to put it into a regional, a zone that's regional commercial, but the general plan does not allow for that. And the reasons are sort of obvious, I would say. Just getting to your concern about what happened in Chula Vista, I'll just start there. I actually was personally, I had no particular feelings on this one way or the other. The owner of the property had me research it. And when I Googled it, I saw several instances where things like that happened, where power went out and there was smoking and odor. There were malfunctions, whether the malfunction was the machinery or human error. And in an industrial zone, if, God forbid, something like that happens, the damage is limited. You don't have as many people here. To have a crematorium with a smokestack directly next door to a Home Depot and right across from a Hampton Inn, to me, is just so against common sense. but also against the general plan. The general plan, even if this were in just a regular commercial zone, I think the general plan would forbid it. But the general plan has all this language about special protections for the regional commercial zone and protecting the investments that have been made there, making sure that we comply with the zoning that's there. And so having a processing plant for human remains in a regional commercial center seems to fly in the face of the general plan. The other thing is, even if we were to somehow say that we're not concerned about the zoning, we're not concerned about the general plan, we're going to push forward to issue the conditional use permit, the applicant's supposed to show that this is in the public benefit, not just in their benefit. And that's really where I got lost with their application. I understood them to say that having crematories in El Cajon could be advantageous, and I understand that, and that the nearest one is Vista, and that perhaps it's a burden for people to have to go all the way to Vista if they want to witness a cremation. But there was nothing that I saw that explained why it needed to be in a regional commercial center or at this site. I don't see how that is to the public benefit. I certainly see how that benefits this applicant that already owns that land, but I don't see how it benefits the public, and I think it's on them to have the burden to show why this site is in the public benefit and essential and necessary. And the case law that I looked at was pretty clear that if they don't meet that burden, if they can't show that it complies with the general plan, then I don't believe the commission would have the authority to issue the conditional use permit. The last thing I want to point out, just as a lawyer, is liability. If I were in your position, I would be concerned about claims, whether from individuals that traverse in that area. In particular, I just want to point out mercury poisoning, which they kind of said is no big deal, but when I Googled it, the CDC was pretty clear that really low levels over long periods of time can lead to significant mental defects, kidney abnormalities. If I were sitting in your position, I would say, if something goes wrong, if we're going to have a problem, I'd love it to be an industrial area. We don't have as many people walking around, and we don't have a hotel and a Home Depot. Thank you for your time and for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other speaker cards?
Yes. Ernie Kassoff. And Mr. Kassoff, could you also clarify if you're in oppose or support?
That's OFF. I'm happy to be back in San Diego. Mr. Miller has given me his 3 minutes so I can get through this whole thing. My name is Ernie Kassoff. I am the National Sales Manager for Facultative Technologies of the Americas, better known as FT, and we are the vendor providing the cremation equipment for East County Mortuary. I attended the Planning Commission meeting on January 17th, where I believe the commissioners made a motion to pass or to allow new wording to use the conditional use of it. And then I got a copy of a letter from Kenneth Schellberg, General Counsel for Gershman Properties, the owner of Fletcher Marketplace, regarding the objections to the city issuing a conditional permit. I'd like to share my response. I believe that many of Mr. Schellberg's comments are based upon not being educated on modern funeral homes and modern crematories. His research seems to be based upon searching the internet, which was outdated and has many inconsistencies. His first comment was the application is at odds with the zoning code. We understand that Gershman has invested millions of dollars in the shopping center, and at the same time, Mr. Zacher as well is planning on spending millions of dollars on this project to provide building renovations that will increase the value of the property as well as a sizable investment for state-of-the-art cremation equipment. Mr. Schellberg then stated that a crematorium is per se an industrial use. This is a statement that I feel has no substance at all, and I'm unsure where the General Counsel got this information. Our company has built more than 200 crematories in the U.S., with more than 80% being in commercial and residential use locations. Crematories built in industrial park settings do not let families to conveniently participate in providing dignified service for the loved ones that they've recently passed. Mr. Schellberg also made the following statement in his letter: "It is a processing plant for human bodies." I wonder what he calls hospitals, clinics, or a cemetery. I believe this shows disrespect for the funeral profession and the people that provide solace for families of loved ones that have passed. He also called this exhaust stack a smokestack. I should remind him that he should now agree that every restaurant within the Fletcher Marketplace has a smokestack that emits smoke and odors from their kitchens. As crematories are permitted by state regulators for the emissions compliance, so are restaurants permitted by the health department and other agencies. The statement which compares this site with other crematories in the area and their locations has no relevance, as the other crematories are not designed to offer the dignified final disposition for loved ones that have passed that Mr. Zecker will provide. Mr. Schellenberg stated the application is contrary to the general plan's requirement to specially protect regional commercial areas. There's a lot of legal mumbo-jumbo in this section. I'll only address the statement regarding the Hampton Inn location that his client owns. I travel weekly and stay in many hotels throughout the U.S. They're located in residential, commercial, and industrial areas. I have stayed in that location, and I was able to observe project site and has minimal sight lines. However, I did notice the odors coming from some of the restaurants, and quite frankly, some of them weren't very pleasant, along with their garbage. One of the other statements he made was the proposal site is visible from State Route 67 as well as the off-ramps, with the building being vacant for many years and turning to an upkept property with many homeless camping out. I don't believe this is the intent of a gateway entrance. The proposed renovations by Mr. Zacher will enhance the building, and the exhaust stack will not be visible from State Route 67 nor the off-ramps. Lastly, if this location was so important to the look of the gateway, why has no one developed the property over the last 5+ years? He then stated there is a significant nuisance pollution concerns if a cremation is allowed at this site. As a manufacturer, FT designs and engineers cremation system equipment with advanced technologies. We utilize a control system that continuously monitors and automatically adjusts fuels, oxygen, and temperatures to provide a finite control of the combustion process. Thus, we eliminate smoke, odors, and particulate matter coming from the exhaust stack. Nothing is foolproof, and no one in their right mind could guarantee that any system is foolproof. We design systems that are proactive, allowing the equipment to operate as designed. Mr. Schellenberg stated that smoke and odors could exist in the exhaust stack if the operation fails to a power outage. However, Mr. Zacher is intending to have a backup generator installed as part of his project to provide power in the event of a failure. As in our design of being proactive in the management of the cremation process, I would ask Mr. Schellenberg that if he can guarantee that he have placed backup generators at all the businesses at Fletcher Marketplace to keep refrigeration, elevators, and other mechanical systems in operational in the event of an electrical blackout. I can't tell you how many times during my business travels over the last 35 years that I've been in hotels and various businesses that lose power and mechanical systems shut down. The other thing I cannot guarantee is the sun will shine every day and we will not have heavy rains causing flooding. Mr. Schellenberg stated that he did a quick Google search of complaints made against crematoriums and that brought up several articles reporting crematoriums that cause nuisances by creating smoke odors and an unpleasant humming noise. He also stated some of these were caused by loss of power, which I've already addressed, machine maintenance issues, which FT services all of our cremators every 500 to 600 cremations, providing proactive preventive maintenance, and lastly, human error, which we utilize computers to provide the operation of the cremator, thus reducing the possibility of human error. One other fact about Mr. Schellenberg's research. As of 2022, there are 3,418 crematories operating in the United States, and he was able to find several articles about complaints. Did he mention how many articles he found referencing crematories that do not have any complaints? So is it a couple, 2, 5, 10, 20? The percentage would be less than 0.5%. The one article he referenced to in Scottsdale, Arizona, is from 2021 and was also put up on a video. The facts of this crematorium have he did not follow up on the current status of this crematorium. The facts are this crematorium had equipment that was installed from 1995 to 2006 and used manual controls with very little automation. In 2021,
your time is up. How much more time do you need?
About 2 minutes.
That's fine.
In 2021, our company installed one of our FT3 cremators, and in 2022, we installed 2 additional FT cremators at that site. The crematory intends to install another cremator last year, this year, and one more in 2024. By the end of 2004, all of the old cremators will be replaced. Since the installation of the FT cremators, consumer complaints have been eliminated due to operating the old machinery only on a very limited basis when required. As for emissions, Mr. Schellenberg specifically mentions the possibility of mercury contamination or air pollution. In the report, he references that the release of mercury vapor is a serious concern. If Mr. Schellenberg would have done a better research on Google, he would have found a study that was done by the University of Minnesota in 2015 in conjunction with the Minnesota Pollution Agency to determine the amount of mercury from dental fillings that would be emitted in the environment as a result of cremation. In addition, statistics from Bay Area Air Quality Management District in California were factored into the report. What the report determined is that mercury was used in dental fillings until the early 1970s, and this was the reason for possible vapors released during the cremation process. As mercury usage in dental procedures stopped in the mid-'70s, and many of these fillings have been replaced during the last 50 years, along with deaths of many of these consumers, the concerns for mercury pollution from dental will basically be eliminated by 2015. Another fact to be considered is the amount of mercury contained in one fluorescent light bulb is equal to approximately 1,000 cremations. So I would expect that all the properties located in the Fletcher Marketplace have replaced all those fluorescent light bulbs with LED light style fixtures. The disposal of these bulbs is normally to throw them into a dumpster where they break and they can spread mercury vapors to the public. Lastly, with concerns about other pollutants, we have provided a diagram, which I think you were presented prior to the last meeting, that shows the release of emissions such as VOCs from dry cleaners, carbon monoxide from gas-powered leaf blowers, particulate matter from residential fireplaces, and nitrous oxide, also known as NOx, being released from trash trucks, which all produce more emissions in one day than an FT cremator will produce in 1,000 cremations in 1 year. The big one is the NOx, because how many dumpsters are emptied each day at Fletcher Marketplace containing broken fluorescent light tubes? By approving the project, the City of El Cajon will have the most advanced crematory in North America, offering local families the opportunity to experience a dignified and final disposition of the loved ones that have passed. Thank you for your time and courtesy.
Do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Mr. Kissoff, you mentioned a backup generator.
Yes.
Would that be an automatic backup generator?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You mentioned, real quick, the situation that happened, was it in Chula Vista?
Yeah.
Were you aware of that situation that Commissioner Sotile was referring to?
When we see smoke coming from a cremator,
okay,
it's because they are not. The reason for smoke is it's a failure of combustion, proper combustion. In other words, the machines probably have manual controls on it. And there's an operator there that sits there and moves the dials and tries to get it to do it right. We don't do that. We're very proactive. We measure oxygen levels, and we're constantly modifying so we don't have that. Ours is all computer operated. We don't depend on humans that can make mistakes consistently.
Right. Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Mike Miller, but he ceded his time to Ernie Kassoff. That's why Mr. Kassoff was granted 6 minutes to speak at the beginning. May I please have Jonathan Jabaro come to the podium, please?
Good evening. First name Jonathan, last name Jabaro, spelled Jaboro. I wanted to, again, thank you all for the opportunity to listen to us here today and allow us to make our case. I'd like to thank Mrs. Butterfield as well for raising her concerns and the property management's concerns. It truly, really only validates all that I said last time we were here, about the fear of the unknown. And I'm glad some of these topics were brought up here today because they're legitimate concerns if you don't truly understand the process, such as mercury being truly obsolete, which is why we never even touched on it last time. And the fact of the matter is, technology is an amazing thing. There's pros and cons to everything we do with technology. In fact, we just experienced one of the cons with technology, trying to connect to a laptop here just a few moments ago. But with that being said, having technology and information in the palm of our hands is such an amazing gift, but there's also so many negatives that go with that same, technology in the palm of our hands. If we don't know something, now folks make the big mistake of turning to social media, which is why social media places are now putting, false information tags on a lot of things, and Google searches are no different. You can Google search something. If you look for anything in life, this is a hard fact for anyone to swallow, you're going to find it. If I go on a Google search and I search negative things about having a property management company, I'm going to find it. If I Google search positive reasons why I should have a property management team, I'm going to find it. It just is what it is. Most of that information is typically outdated because when a situation arises, as humans by nature, we try to find solutions to better our processes, which is why, again, Mercury is obsolete. But I did my own digging. I did a little bit of research, and I wanted to truly understand their concerns because, Robert frequently instills in all of us is we want to be good to our community, but we also want to be good neighbors. And we want to understand and address folks' concerns so that we can have a better solution that's viable for both parties. And when I searched emissions, I came to find that, air filter companies, Camfil, have shown that through scientific research, grilling hamburgers and the release of particulate matter is by far the most dangerous form of emissions. And yet, again, I'm not saying this to be combative because we want to be good neighbors, but nobody complains about the In-N-Out being there. I go there. I love it. When it comes to emissions, I think it's just finding the right information. And I'm glad Ernie, touched on particulate matter last time we were here, and he touched up on it again. Our technology is going to be advanced. We're sparing no cost. We're going to, invest all that we have to make sure that everything is safe for our community. And, when we, speak on why we truly need it, it isn't just for El Cajon. I spoke to how far behind Los Angeles County was, during the pandemic, and they still currently are today. Folks were waiting a month to meet with, their funeral arranger and several months before they got their loved ones back. Well, we have an opportunity here in San Diego to get ahead of the game and not fall behind so that crematories and cemeteries and our communities don't have to wait several months to lay their loved ones to rest to get to the next phases of grief so that they can move on to their new norm in life. 6 crematories in San Diego County, we're already behind the ball. It's something we need here in El Cajon. It's something we need in the county. It's something we need in Southern California. And it's something our community needs. And I think you all touched on the fact that...
You're out of time. I'm going to have to cut you here. We did hear you last time. I appreciate your passion. And thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other speaker cards?
May I have Robert Sakar come to the podium, please?
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Robert Zakar, spelled Z-A-K-A-R. I'm going to keep it short. I just want to touch on some of the things that were said tonight and possibly answer some questions or concerns. I know Planning Commissioner Miraz, you mentioned about complaints at East County Mortuary. We haven't had any. You spoke about the neighbors. At one of my attempts to get a conditional use permit here, my neighbor did show up. The person who owns the property directly next door to me, the dry cleaners, the pizza place, they did show up and they spoke in my favor of wanting a crematorium there. And they also did speak of what type of neighbor I was and what a difference I've made being there on Magnolia next to them. I wanted to talk about the surrounding areas. It's been said a few times that crematories should be per se in industrial areas. Well, the building that I currently own, if I go across the street and buy the building across the street, now I'm in an industrial area. I'm still going to be in the same spot, same area. I'm still going to have the same effects, which I'm hoping that those effects are not a problem because we're putting in all the effort and all the technology that we need to keep everyone safe. I believe what we're doing is, or what people are doing, they're demoralizing death. And we really need to get past that. The same way we've gotten past everything else in the last 30 years, that's what we need to do now with these families. We don't want to be in an industrial area. We want these families to be able to come to a nice area, to be able to go across the street and get something to eat, or to stay at the Hampton Inn and go ahead and come there and witness their loved one, being put to rest in a dignified manner in a nice facility, in a nice atmosphere. We strongly, I want to talk about opinion versus facts. And the fact is that East County Mortuary has been here as Paris Frederick Mortuary since 1942, before a lot of these buildings were here. And everyone, even some of the commissioners, have thought that there's been cremation there and happening there. Although it hasn't, the perception is there. But yet, Courtyard opened up there, the same owners as Hampton, and they're thriving. Their rooms are $300-400 a night. The Rubios across the street, people sit there and they watch us do services, and yet they're thriving as well. So to say or give an opinion, would Hampton open? Yeah, they'd open because they opened up here. And to say whether a restaurant would stay or leave, yeah, they'll stay because they're staying and they're thriving. The last thing I just wanted to touch point on, because I know my time is up, is, Ms. Butterfield stated liability. Well, as far as potential liability on the city's part, for allowing this use, in order for there to be liability, there has to be damages. We plan on being a good neighbor. We're confident that we're going to add to their business, to the restaurants, to the Hampton, to everybody else. And more importantly, I think staff said it perfectly, that this can come back to planning commissions. I am going to invest millions of dollars, not because I'm a wealthy man or anything, but because I want to have the best for El Cajon. And I don't want to jeopardize that. I can't afford to jeopardize that. So I am going to be the best neighbor possible, not just for the properties that are across the street from me, but for the whole community. And I thank you for all your time. And if you do have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yep. Question. Signage. I know you can't give us any guarantees, and we're not here to tell you what kind of sign to put up. But from what I understand, the only sign you're going to have is going to be facing, not on Magnolia, but kind of facing out towards, what's that street there?
Coogan Way.
Coogan. Is that correct?
Yes and no. So yes, that's the sign that's going to have the name of the business on it. But on the side of Magnolia, I do plan on putting the address, because I do have a Magnolia address. Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure that people who are looking for my address can see the 1034 North Magnolia. You guys got to remember something as well. We are in a sensitive industry where someone's lost their loved one. So we're going to make it as respectful and dignified and as beautiful as we can. So a gaudy sign doesn't do me any good as much as it does the rest of the community.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
On the sign, is it going to be illuminated?
Yes. So it'll probably be backlit, but I do plan on it being like a nice, elegant sign, something like you would see either channel letters or have backlighting, kind of like what's on the plans. I think it shows a little bit of lighting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Sir.
Can you touch on the convenience and necessity for this location?
Absolutely. We're currently in El Cajon. Last year we served close to 1,000 families just here at our location. 70% of those were cremations. Many people want to know that it's their loved one going into the chamber by themselves. Although I don't believe it happens any other way, there is that misconception, just like there is a lot of other misconceptions. Some people need to see their loved one one last time or know that it's them going into the chamber. And for religious reasons as well. We do many Buddhist services. And in the Buddhist tradition, it's customary for them to actually press the button that starts the chamber itself. I don't want to get gruesome, and I don't want to tell you what the industry is doing now. I mean, you're talking about box trucks like U-Hauls, bodies being put in boxes and taken to mainly Lake Elsinore, Riverside, Temecula, other places that have these crematories. I mean, these bodies are being shipped as cargo. Now, I know the law, justifies them being cargo, but they're still someone's mom, someone's dad, brother, or sister. Now, when you talk about necessity, of course, you have 3.5 million people. You have 6 active crematories. Those are the only ones that are serving 3.5 million people. You go into neighboring, counties, they have a fraction of what we have in population, but yet they have more crematories. And I believe I provided everyone with a list of the neighboring counties with their population and with how many crematories they have. When you talk about public convenience and necessity, I think we do need more of these. I think that's the direction the whole industry's going. That's the whole direction society's going to be going. Pretty soon, one thing that, Ernie was saying about there's no guarantee about power going off or, being able to function or what have you. One thing I can guarantee you is we're all going to lose a loved one and we're all going to die. So imagine your loved one. And imagine not having an opportunity to say goodbye because you live out of state. So when you talk about necessity, yes, it's there. And people use us because they want us to, from when they call us to when we give them their loved one back, they want their loved one in our care. They don't want us passing them off to someone else. But yet we have to.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other speaker cards?
No.
All right. Do I have a motion to close public hearing?
I move to close public hearing.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Serco, second by Commissioner Pollock-Rude. Please vote. All right, and motion carries.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thank you. All right, fellow commissioners, any deliberation? Is there anything that's changed or where you guys are at?
We've seen this. This is the third location that this has been proposed for. Mm-hmm. The first time, and it's been a while, so I'm not sure if it was the first time it was at the industrial park, and the second time it was at the mortuary, and this is the third location. And when I first came to El Cajon, I assumed that every crematorium that I saw actually cremated bodies there.
Yeah.
So I was shocked when they were asking for them at the location, which I assumed they already had. But when it comes to convenience and necessity, in this particular location, the convenience aspect, I think Mr. Zakar touched on that the services outside of the actual memorial, food, lodging, freeways, they're all close by. That makes it a very convenient location. I doubt that very many people who drive into El Cajon on Magnolia, coming off of 67, first see the mortuary and crematorium and go, ooh. I don't think this is going to change any of that perception. As far as the property improvements, this is an opportunity to upgrade a property that's been kind of dwindling the last couple of years. I always wondered about the playground when it was the resource center, but I think this is an excellent use of the property. I do see that there's going to be a lot of public response, but I don't think it's going to be negative. I think when they are able to have their memorial, have their loved one cremated in El Cajon, they're going to be pleased by that. I know that the rates of cremation have been going up, just like the prices of a cemetery plot have been going up, and more people are turning to cremation rather than burial. So I think it's important for us as the city of El Cajon to get ahead of the curve and to allow this use. I don't think it should be just this one. I think there are other locations that I would like to see. If the business is there, I'd like to see more development. I've looked into the technology behind the crematoriums. They've advanced a long ways since the the Neptune Club. So I don't see any reason that we should withhold this.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments, fellow commissioners? Yeah, yes.
Well, this has been very difficult for me to decide. I see both sides of the situation. I see the point of view that the city has regarding being the central regional commercial center and why they would like to keep it as pristine as possible to induce people to come and do business in El Cajon. But at the same time, as Commissioner Circo mentioned, that building has been empty, I think, 5 years, if I'm not wrong. And it has not been developed. And it has been an eyesore. And also it has been an invitation for homelessness to come and break into the building and stay in that property, So having business go there, it would be a great improvement for what it is right now. And I also do understand the convenience that it does offer to the community. And the fact is that across the street is an industrial park. However, it's industrial area rather, not park. Industrial area that is in the county of San Diego. It's not in the city of El Cajon. So it's outside of our jurisdiction in that particular area. So you could say that's on the borderline, that building. And since it is a CUP can be revisited and also determined if there's any problems with it. And the commissioners can always hear on that CUP or the city council may. I think maybe allowing the crematorium to be in that location would be, at this point in time, a good idea.
Yeah. I walked back and forth. I was actually at Home Depot twice this weekend, and I really looked at it. And one thing I never really realized was there's a big antenna right there, too. A big one. And when we look at that area, it's kind of an oddball property that really is not, it's really meant for people as a service property, meaning it doesn't really matter where it is. Now I know where it is, I'm going to go there. You wouldn't go there just because you're driving down the street. It's not that kind of inviting property that it's not going to be a fast food or it's not going to be any type of store like that. There's a ton of industrial across the street, the turf store, the turf place is there. There's electricians there and medium-sized industry there. So I agree. I think it's a good use for that space. It's going to bring people there, and when they're done, family members are going to stay at the hotel. There's places to eat right there, but it's also not sticking out either. It's kind of a nondescript area. It's just kind of sitting there, underutilized, but it's not, when I think of that place, I don't think this is where I want my office to be because it's got great signage. It's not real convenient. I mean, not a lot of people, the only people that really drive down that area of Magnolia are people that know how to cut through if there's traffic on the 67, and so it's not like it's a huge area where a ton of people are at and they're going to be like, holy smokes, what's this? And the building's going to look nice and it's going to be kind of quiet, and people aren't really going to know what it is until they probably need it. I'm kind of with you on that, and I definitely think it would be an opportunity for Mr. Zakar to continue servicing, the city like he does in such a reverent way too. So, yes.
Really quick, I did a little research regarding LA and Riverside and OC and all those other areas, the amount of crematoriums there are there and where they're located and what they're next to. So I know it seems a lot of not in my backyard type of thing, but there it's, some are right near residential areas, which, a little unconventional. So it's not an area, doing property management, it's not like a building that everybody wants to rent. It's been vacant for a long time. And that being so close to hotel and the amount of homelessness that's there, I think this is an improvement to have somebody in that building, and vagrancy will stop there and move on. And I think it would be a well addition to El Cajon, because it's not like you said, you're not going to be driving through there, but I think for people that need those services, we are lacking those services, and it is close to get on and off the freeway there, and close to places where people can stay. So I think this is a good location, and how they put the signage and how it's placed. I think it is very convenient for the city, and it is, unfortunately, people die and they need a place to go, and he's done a great job thus far in helping people, and I think it's a good way to continue here in the city.
Great. Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Rose, may I add something?
Yes.
I would like to see, as a condition of approval, that they would have a functional backup system, as Mr. Kaisoff mentioned, that they would have one to prevent any, because we may have power failures in the near future, and if so, they have a system where no accident occurs.
Sure. And I was under the impression that they were. Was that correct?
I believe he mentioned it, but I don't know if it's a part of the conditions of approval.
Okay.
Maybe staff can answer that question.
Yeah. Staff?
The draft resolution that was prepared by staff doesn't require a backup generator system. I might suggest reopening the public hearing to have the applicant answer that question as to whether it's part of their current scope.
Perfect. All right, let's reopen public hearing. Yeah. Sure.
And real quick on that, we were talking about for power for a backup system. What about for computer? Because they said everything's going to be ran by the computer. Computers fail. So is there a backup system for the computer system as well?
Yeah, well, last time, I don't know if you heard in the last meeting, he mentioned that everything is monitored at a different location. I don't know if it's redundancy, but let's open up public hearing and ask Mr. Zakar some questions. Public hearing's open.
So to answer the first question, backup generators, absolutely. We plan on putting backup generators, for several reasons. One of them, of course, that if there is power failure, if we do have a decedent in the chamber, we could at least finish, that cremation respectfully and without any kind of power failure and any kind of smoke to emit into the air. So that was part of the plan, yes.
Okay. And as far as computer software, what are your experiences with the fail-safes put in place with that?
With the technology that we're using, it's the latest and greatest. That they do monitor it on the back end. I haven't seen the failures from the computers. I think the only type of computer failure we can possibly have is, again, with the power failure. But with the backup generators, if the power doesn't go out, the system's going to continue to run.
Let me ask you a question. You obviously store the deceased at the mortuary here, right?
Correct.
And obviously you have some sort of cooling system, refrigeration.
Yes.
Have you ever had a situation where you had the power fail and what do you guys do over there? I'm just curious.
We have had power failures. My coolers are designed intentionally so that when they're closed, as long as you're not opening and closing the doors, it maintains the temperature. Legally, you have to store a body at 50 degrees. So even with a power failure, our refrigeration has never went above 50 degrees. We normally run our refrigeration units at about 35 degrees. And like I said, it's not like a convenience store where people are opening and closing the doors all the time. Mm-hmm. The only time we're going inside the refrigeration units is when we're placing decedents in there and we're taking them out to prepare for services.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Would you have any objection in having the backup system as part of the one of the requirements?
No objection, sir. Okay. I'm happy to add whatever it takes to make sure that the city of El Cajon is comfortable with us operating. I'm pretty sure we're going to prove to not only the city of El Cajon but the rest of San Diego, what this type of industry is capable of.
Right. a condition of approval. That's what I was trying to think of. Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy putting it on there if that, again, makes this process easier and more comfortable for everyone involved.
Great. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. All right. Sure, come on down.
I was just going to ask, and really I'm just asking you, but if we're I want to reserve all rights for appeal, so just want to say that out there. But in terms of the conditions, one of the things that I noted when we were looking at this was when you really get into an issue is not when you're doing the cremations that the families are viewing, but when you start taking in other cremations to make more profit. And that seems to be what has happened in some of these places where they had big problems because the cremation, like this machine, can run 24 hours a day. And at some of the places, the cremations were nonstop, especially during COVID. And, please God, we don't have another nasty COVID outbreak. But would the commission consider a condition of only allowing the cremations to be the ones where the families are there viewing and not allowing an onslaught of other cremations or limiting the number of cremations or the number of hours? A backup generator can be quite loud. I don't think it would be great to have cremations going on at all hours. And I think their intention is only to allow it for the ones where the families are actually there and viewing, which I would imagine would be, during the day. But if we are into the world of conditions, that's one I know we would really like to have.
Great, thank you.
Are there hours of operation attached to this? I don't think I saw those, but
So following the continued public hearing, staff did have a meeting with Mr. Zakar, and we discussed potential ongoing conditions of approval. He did note that there is the potential to operate on a 24-hour basis, I believe. Staff didn't propose any restricted hours of operation. I think, again, for this issue, if the commission wants to consider that, I would encourage you to get some additional feedback from Mr. Zakar with regards to restrictions.
Yeah, come on down. Let's talk about that.
What Ms. Butterfield is addressing is third-party cremations. I do a lot of volume. I'm barely going to be able to keep up with what I'm doing. And if, God forbid, another pandemic hits, I definitely won't be able to keep up. But with that being said, I don't believe that hours of operation should be a condition. And the reason is not because I want to be working 24 hours a day, but there are, again, a cultural thing. Hispanic families sometimes want to do an overnight viewing, or somebody comes in late and we're doing a cremation in the late hours. Ms. Butterfield mentions noise. If you look at the technology, we really don't emit any noise, and I can ask Ernie to come back up and talk about the decimals of all the how loud these machines are. I mean, you can't hear the machine running from the other room, let alone outside the building.
Right. Yeah, I'm not really concerned about noise. You're right next to a freeway.
I'm not. But again, even that, like I said, when you're in another room, you can't even hear the noise of the chamber operating while being in the same building, let alone outside the building. So noise isn't an issue.
Okay. Yes.
So I understand your point about different cultures and having different hours for services. I think the concern that Mrs. Butterfield brought up was having continuous operation. And I know that newer machines are designed to be very resilient, but is that something you anticipate doing, is running 24/7?
I may have to on some occasions, yes, because again, we can't predict when people die, and that's the truth. I'll go a whole week and I won't get a single call. I'll get 10 calls in a day, and we're out and we're running around trying to figure out how to serve these families. Mm-hmm. So yes, there are days where we may run 24 hours because we're trying to catch up, and they're not all witness cremations. It's because we're trying to catch up and accommodate families who want to have memorial services or have to leave town. So we need to get that cremation done for them right away. Because my policy is that if it's humanly possible, we don't say no. So if a family asks me for a next day burial or a next day cremation, I can humanly possibly do it, I'm not going to say no to them.
All right. I think there's a slight distinction that I love the fact that you are available 24/7 whenever somebody needs it. I don't think I'm trying to put limits on that, but would you be operating machines from Sunday at midnight till Saturday at midnight?
The probability of it is no. No.
It's going to be based on
demand.
On demand. So there could be 4 days when you don't do a cremation, and then 2 days later you do 20.
Absolutely. There could be a week where I don't do a single cremation. And there could be a day where, I need to get through 6, 7, or 8 of them, depending on how long it takes to do a cremation. Some take an hour and a half, some take 3 hours. So if, I have some that are taking longer than others, then I'm going to be there longer and I'm going to be cremating longer.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are going to be, like you said, I may go a week and not have a single cremation.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any other questions for the applicant? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this time I make a motion to close public hearing.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Moreau, second by Commissioner Circo. Please vote. Thanks for bringing that up, too. I think it's
Motion
important
carries
to
by
understand.
unanimous. Oops.
Go ahead.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
We'll get them trained one of these days.
Exactly. We used to have to say it. Now you guys say it, so it's great. All right, so Commissioner Sotila, you would like to amend it to also include backup power generation, correct?
Operational
Okay.
generator.
Okay. All right, and then for staff, I noticed that you put together a planning commission resolution for approval. Is that the resolution you would want us to read off of if we choose to go that route?
Sorry, yes. So there's 2 draft resolutions in the agenda packet. So there's a draft resolution to approve the CEQA exemption, and then a draft resolution to approve the conditional use permit. So similar to other conditional use permit requests, we could have a motion to adopt the resolutions as presented by staff approving.
Okay. With the amendment of the backup power as well, correct?
Yes, of course, at the discretion of the motion maker.
Okay. All right. Well, what say you?
Well, if there's no other discussion, I would like to make a motion approving the resolutions as presented and amended by the Planning Commission tonight.
Okay. I'll second that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, could we just clarify as amended? Is that
As
only
amended.
to include the building plans shall include a backup generator?
That is correct. Thank you.
Perfect. And then no restriction on hours of operation?
No restriction on hours of operation.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'll second that motion. Motion made by Commissioner Circo, seconded by Commissioner Moroz. Please vote. Okay.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of
Thank you.
members present.
Thank you. Mr. Zakar, I know there was a lot of people that spoke on your behalf. I know you deal with a very touchy subject. Like you said, none of us get out here alive. So I just, we're really banking on this being exactly the way you described it and giving you a shot. Thank you. Thank you. All right. With that being said, that is our only item for this evening. Do we have any staff communication?
No communications from staff.
Okay. Commissioners, any communication?
No.
All right. Well, then I'll make a motion to dismiss.
I'll second it.
All right. You got to speak louder in that thing. Okay.
Oh, she did already.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Moreau, seconded by Commissioner Paul Grud. Please vote.
Could you please re-enter your votes?
All right. And meeting is adjourned. Thank you.